Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 21st edition from the Developer Office Hour. Thank you very much for joining us today. So my name is Darlisa, and I'll be your host. So whenever you're just building your Cardano or exploring blockchain for the first time, we are really glad to have you here. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, you have the link on the chat, so make sure to subscribe and don't miss any updates. And just before we start our session, I just would like to remind you that on the Builder Fest in Vietnam, we have launched our Cardano Learning Hack Initiative. You're also going to find the link on the chat, which is a great opportunity to not only learn more about Cardano, but also share your knowledge and get your hands on. So don't forget to participate and submit your challenge. So the the PR request closes at 8th of July. So make sure to send your request to us and don't miss out the opportunity to showcase your work and also win a time on. And now let's dive in. So if you are curious about bringing blockchain technology into your project, but you're not quite sure how to start, you are in the right place. Today, you're joined by Fabian Bormann, who will introduce us to an exciting solution called UVerify. So Fabian will start with a quick overview of the tool, its core concepts, architecture, and then he'll follow by a look under the hood and help us to understand the technology behind it. So you will see also which projects are already benefiting from UVerify, and most important, how also you can tailor or customize your solution to fit it to your project. So if you have any question during the presentation, you can just raise your hand and feel free to ask, or you can also drop in the chat. Otherwise, we're also having a Q&A session at the end. So without further ado, Fabian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dalisa. So let's see if I can stick to the 30 minutes, because every time that when I talk about UVerify, I'm always passionate, and then I often lose track of time. So let's see. So UVerify is my spare time project, and it's my spare time project where I'm working 1 hour, literally 1 hour a day, on when I sit aside the bed of my son and wait for him to fall asleep. So usually he will not fall asleep alone. And then I sit aside him, and that's usually the time when I work for UVerify. UVerify is a notary system where you can put hashes and also data on chain and record it in an immutable way, but it's also open source. That's obvious. But then there are 4 points which I would use to describe UVerify, and it's a simple and extendable way to interact with the Cardano blockchain. It's use case first explorer, and it's also Web3 platform for building platforms. Shortcut to onboard the traditional company to the blockchain ecosystem. I usually hate when people read the sentences literally word by word, but in this case it's important because it's the red line of that presentation. So I will walk you through each of these 4 points while showing you the platform itself. So the platform is up and running under app.uverify.io, and that's the, I would say, basic or minimum way of running the platform. You can run the platform on your own, so it's all open source. There are Docker files and also containers you can quickly start. There's a Docker Compose file, and thanks to Roby, there will be also Helm charts in that repository, so you can simply run it on your own. But under app.uverify.io, you find the public version of it. If you click under create verifiable data, you'll be able to drag and drop a file, or to write text. If you write text, you will see, and also if you drop a file, you will see that you can select different template types and add metadata to it. That's not traditional transaction metadata. It's metadata stored in a datum. And therefore, we can also work with the metadata later and, for example, use it to fulfill another step in the next process. If you just upload something, so like, for example, a file, and you want to check if it's valid later on, then you can go under verify. You can drag and drop the same file, and you will see the certificate. There's also a deep link that's created by the process of uploading something, and there you have also the deep link to the certificate. If you upload the same data twice with the same payment credentials, so the issue of the first certificate, and if you then upload a second certificate, you will see per default a pagination, but you can also kind of customize the ways, so like overwriting certificates or updating data. I wrote UVerify mainly for a use case mentioned by my cousin. He's working in the food industry, so chemical food industry, and he wanted to put chemical laboratory reports on chain and share just a part of these reports, which I would share in this case as metadata, but the whole certificate with an access to a Web2 system behind it, so that an auditor can then audit this report, but the public visitor can see the critical data like proteins or whatever as part of that chemistry laboratory report. You can use the UI to upload data or hashes to the chain, but you can also use the API. There is a docs page available under docs.uverify.io, which walks you also to the core concepts of UVerify, but then also to the API endpoints. There is, on top of this, also the main page of UVerify.io on GitHub, and it lists the features, but also at the same time it provides you with code snippets, so that you can just put in low-hanging fruits like uploading data from a classical React-based or JavaScript-based front end, and then you can also see what you can customize within the Docker Compose file. So you can really make UVerify your own platform if you want. This sample on the left side just provides you with what does it need to upload your data, or what does it need to send a request to put this data on chain, and how you can then sign the transaction that comes back built by UVerify, and then use UVerify again to submit the transaction, but you can also submit it through any kind of backend you want. So while I showed you UVerify and the classic design, I now come to the point where it's simple and extendable. So this is also UVerify. You might remember the t-shirts some of you collected at the Builderfest. They have a QR code on the site. And if you scan the QR code, you come to the main certificate, which is more like a certificate I created under a view called, I think, verifiable goods or connected goods. And it has a batch of items, in this case t-shirts, and this t-shirt badge has the ID of the shirt, which is, for example, in this case t-shirt 1 or 250. But then there's also on the right side a hash as part of this datum, which is the hash of a password, and the password is part of that t-shirt. So if you scan the t-shirt, it brings you to that site. And then it asks the backend extension, so you can extend UVerify on both sides, front end and backend, which then queries that items, which is an NFT collection. And if the NFT hasn't been minted yet, it just shows you the blank page. If you want to mint that NFT, it just erases the entry from that list if the password fits the hash on chain. And then you can provide it with your link tree or with your accounts. Like here in example, John, you shared this in a public channel, so I was able to just create the screenshot. That's how it looks like if you claimed it. And this is also UVerify. Until now, you had to contribute these changes to the repository itself. So the front end, the custom front end extensions had to be part of the front end repository. That changed. So you can now create a private repository even, and you're not limited by the license of the main repository because the extensions became more, like real extensions and not just interfaces part of the repository. I will come to that later. And that's also why I would call it a use case first explorer, because it's kind of an explorer. So when we finished the explorer project, I realized, oh, now I started again to build an explorer, but this time it's use case first. So for each and every data entry on chain, I would start thinking from the beginning, what's my use case? What do I want to achieve? What do I want to build? And then I build the custom extension for this particular part of data that I put on chain with UVerify. If I write a front-end extension, then there's also a field called UI layouts, UI layout metadata, and that's the metadata which is then also automatically added by UVerify. So if you drag and drop a certificate and you, for example, select the diploma layout, then it will give you these boxes where you can then fill your data in, and that's the data which is essential to build the certificate later on. What you might see that here there is a social hub entry, which is not part of the public uverify.io page. At least you shouldn't be able to see it because you can restrict UI layouts by payment credentials, so to say, by wallets. And this one is restricted by my wallet, so I'm the only one currently to make use of the social hub extension. But I could also add people to that list or wallets to that list. I could also leave it blank, and then everyone would be able to use the social hub extension. So what does it mean when it comes to the architecture of UVerify? UVerify has a backend, which is a Java application, and it makes use of the wonderful Yassi store developed by Satya Ranjan. And it listens to the chain, it interacts with the UVerify contracts, it just scope index all the transactions from the blockchain that has to do with have to do with the UVerify contracts, and then it puts it in a traditional database so that the UI can look it up pretty quickly. If some certificates have a UI layout in it, then what I do is, if the UI goes to verify, so if you want to verify something, I fetch the certificate comes back with that metadata we've put on chain. The UI layout field is one of it, so I check if the payment credential fits to that list of whitelisted credentials, and then I'm rendering the UI layout. But I can also add an UVerify backend extension in it, so I can just override an interface, and then I can index more data. And I can also, that's what we did with other use cases. Maria, I don't know actually if I can talk about this in public, but we used UVerify also to interact with classic systems like Google Sheets, for example. So you can just plug and play it into your existing Web 2 architecture if needed. And also we have the ability with UVerify to whitelist the pages by a so-called Web3 API key, or bootstrap datum in this case, because the UVerify contracts were very simple actually. So we have a Web3 API key. There's a default one which defines the batching, the fee of a UVerify certificate, a fee split. So you can have multiple wallets getting a fee on a fee interval, which is also part of the bootstrap datums. They have a time to live and also a transaction counter, and obviously the whitelist. So people that are allowed to fork a user state from that bootstrap datum. If it's empty, then everyone is allowed to fork this bootstrap datum. So this Web3 API key, I would call it, into a user state. This means that all of these fields like batching, fee split, and so on, time to live, will be part of the user state. Every time you create a certificate using that user state, the counter will go down. A user state will be invalidated once the time to live field is reached, or when the counter reaches 0. It will automatically fork a new user state. So you don't need to care about transaction building. That's the backend will care about transaction building. You don't need to care about transaction building. It will automatically create a new user state if the old user state has been consumed, and then it's using this user state to put the certificates on chain. Why I'm doing this? I'm doing this to make it possible for people to use UVerify to build their platforms. So if I, for example, have a use case and I want to bring people to it to build, so I have a certificate view for, let's say, toys. I want to bring people to create these certificates on their own. So I don't want to create all these certificates on my own. I want to have like a franchise system where people create these certificates. Then they need to use the bootstrap datum, so they need to use my datum to fork their user state from, and therefore for all the certificates they would need to pay the fee. If there is no certificate fitting for your user credential, you will automatically fork from the default one, which has 0 fee currently, but also just one batch, and is not fee splitting anything. If you're afraid, okay, that sounds horrible when it comes to future and perspective, because you can easily at every time enable fee, then I can try to give you some confidence with the time to live and also the counter. If there is a use case, if there is an agreement, for example, for a university or something, I would just set the time to live to 20 years. I would set the transaction counter to something reasonable, and then they can just work with it for the next 20 years. Even if I remove that bootstrap datum, I'm not able to remove that user state, so they can still consume the user state. If they try sharing the API key with different people, then the transactions will be consumed earlier. So that's where they would need to renew the API key. That's how UVerify works from the business side of things, so to say. But also interesting if you want to build a business on UVerify. And that's what I want to do with you right now. So first I thought, let us brainstorm about something that we want to do with UVerify. I thought about raw materials or medical reports or something like this, property certificates. But I thought, let's go further. Let's not brainstorm, because I know the UVerify part would be fast, but maybe the brainstorm part would take time. So I brainstormed for you. And this is Anna. I created Anna with AI, obviously. And Anna has a Web2 use case, so she really loves pets. And that's why she created some ID, which is like a necklace for pets. And if you scan it, then you will see the certificate of each pet and like the name and also a phone number attached. So Anna's current technical setup is she runs the front end, which maybe she uses Firebase hosting, so it doesn't cost anything, but she needs to create these necklace. AI tells us it will be around $5 to $8 per unit if you use NFTs, for example. And there will be a backend and a database involved. Also ChatGPT told me it's like $20 to $50 a month. It depends because also of traffic and the data growth. And but this is just an average assumption. So it's a shortcut to onboard traditional companies to blockchain ecosystems, but why? Why should they do this? So that's always a question, right? And there's a lot of potential to reduce costs, and for example, and also to remove the technology they don't want to maintain. And there's also scaling aspect to it. That's why they could consider to make their Web2 use case a Web3 use case, because actually they want to run the service and not the servers, and they want to get rid of the server costs, and also every kind piece of software. You either need to be a computer scientist or you need a computer scientist to write it, and you have technical maintenance. And with the new UI templates, you're able to just run npx, UVerify CLI, init pet necklace, and then you will see the following. It creates a folder for you with a bootstrapped or with the template that has the following structure. It's a React app, but the interesting part is the certificate TSX file, because that's the one that you import later in UVerify or that you add to UVerify. Everything around this is just for playing with your certificate and to speed up the development process. So if you just start it, then so you can just run it by npm install and then npm run dev. Then you will see this website, which is the certificate TSX file. It's a template. Obviously, Anna, who runs the pet business, is not a computer scientist. So what she can do is, yeah, she can see that there's a lot of code and it's also maybe good documented and has a lot of comments, and that there is a basic certificate where she could start from. But what she can really do is she goes to an AI like Lovable, for example, and that's what Roby showed me. It's a pretty nice web page, lovable.dev. You can just sign up for free. You have 5 credits per day, I guess. I used that 5 credits to just explain the system, that this is the UI. So I just copy pasted the interface of the UI template, the current certificate.tsx file, and then I explained it that I want to sell pet necklaces with NFT chips, blah, blah, blah. It came up with just a bunch of code, which I were able to copy paste, and it directly worked out of the box and showed me that template UI for pets. In this case, it's Whiskers is the cat. It has a profile picture, a phone number, and so on. So if you want to add this now to UVerify, if in case you run UVerify on your own, you just go to the .env file and you can list additional templates. In this case, name, colon, and then the path to the certificate TSX. If you want to make this part of the public UVerify IO web page, then I will provide a file where you can just put the hash of your current state. So I don't want to check out main because then there's a security risk, but I'm able to, for example, check out a certain point in time of your UI layout, and then I will add this to, after just checking if there's no malicious things in it, but then I will add this to uverify.io. And then it's selectable. You can see, you can put the certificate in it. You can select then the pet certificate. It shows you all these metadata, which is essential for the UI. But I guess that your pet is complaining because it's not GDPR compliant. So what you can do, instead of put everything on chain, there are different design patterns with UVerify. You can even, if you want, you can put the basic certificate and parts of data in it, which is okay and not GDPR relevant, and then have a traditional login, which just calls another service. But in this case, we want to run without the backend, so that's what we promised to our persona, and that's why I just said to Lovable, can you please add the pet name and the 8 digits of the last 8 digits of the phone number and everything that's in the ad or before the ad of the email address to the get parameters. So in this case, you will end up, when you put the certificate on chain, you will end up with the base URL, but then also as a get parameter, you can put the pet's name, the 8 digits, and everything before an email address. That's okay. It fits in a QR code or in an NFC chip, and this is what the pet will have around the neck. So you can just scan it, and only the pet is providing parts of the information, which comes together with the information on chain, and then build GDPR okay-ish solution. So this is how it then looks like. We have the front end, which is Firebase hosting. You can have, so what I also implemented in the past is a PayPal integration. I just scoped it out for now because I need to dig deeper into the regulations, but I wrote the PayPal integration where people could just pay the transaction fees with fiat, so to say, and then there's a rotation system where ADA will just be bought and put into a fee pot. The fee pot needs to be big enough to carry this, but But this would be something to onboard Web 2 users. There's also direct ADA payment that's obviously possible, but not everyone that wants to have this necklace has a ADA wallet. So we need to slightly onboard people to the system. And as I said, UVerify can have backend extensions as well. Currently, they are also part of the repository. In the future, there will be the same thing as for the front end, so an external backend extension where you can then also, for example, interact with a Google spreadsheet. You can restrict endpoints by wallets or by Web3 API tokens. And only if you comply with, so if your transaction has been signed by this and that wallet, which is allowed to use the endpoint, or if your transaction and your UVerify certificate uses the Bootstrap token, which is allowed to work with that system, then you're able to run the business logic to put, for example, something in the Google spreadsheet then interact with the necklace producer, which then puts the hash and the GDPR related data on that chip, which links to the UVerify UI. And I think that's it for her use case. She does not need to care about running the database or the backend anymore. The backend extension is part of the UVerify backend. She's just using the public UVerify UI. And that's also good in case of scaling, because she can then just talk to the world. Every pet that has this necklace will get 5% off in the next pet store. I don't know. But then she can also use this for marketing things. Thank you for your attention. It's really 30 minutes, so I'm surprised, but I bet there will be some questions and I'm happy to answer.
That's pretty cool, as always. I was interested. I was wondering, when you built the when you interacted with the agent or these lovable, that's the thing, right? The thing was, I mean, you only used it for the UI part, right?
I only used it for the UI part.
My next question is: Have you tried this kind of tools for interacting with Cardano itself for the backend stuff or not?
For the transaction building in the front end, it started also to use Lucid, unfortunately. So maybe it needs to learn about Lucid Evolution and other tools. But I've also wanted to use it for the backend part, as it should also be straightforward, because it's also an interface and it has a basic implementation. And actually, if you want to interact in that scope that UVerify allows you to interact with the Cardano blockchain, then you don't need to write many Cardano-specific things. It's
all wrapped into APIs mostly.
It's wrapped into, yeah, exactly, and also wrapped into two main functions, which is process UTXO kind of. So it overrides the Yassi store behavior of going through the UTXOs, and then you can just hook your personal function in between where it processes the other certificates. So you just say, hey, this is either my script hash, or it's my, I don't know. I also want to process it in case I want to add it to the filter, so to say. And then you can add your custom business logic, like putting it in a database or doing data manipulation, like I did, for example, with the Builderfest shirts. There I applied data encryption, decryption, using a salt, but then also using a password on the t-shirt, so it's kind of double encrypted. And or like we are also using it now in other use cases where we, like I said, just interact with Google spreadsheets, update spreadsheets, because you can also override the rollback behavior. So that's the second thing in the interface, how do I process the data and store the data, what am I doing in case of rollback, and then you can also override the transaction endpoint itself to make sure that, for example, if you just call the API with all that pet related stuff, that the name will be cropped and or will be put into the spreadsheet instead to the on-chain metadata. But yeah, I will try tomorrow when my credits have been refreshed. Then I will try to play around with the backend. For today, I run out of these 5 credits.